Hello out there, this is the ANY Pony and welcome to another episode of Crepuscularity Discuss. Today we are going to talk a little about the uniqueness or the not uniqueness of the Brony fandom. And today with me, for once, not Byter, the first time in 19 episodes. The reason for this is that Byter actually thought he would not be available today, so I started planning the show. Now it turned out he is available, so you can still see him in the chat hanging out, and he will also host the Aftermath as usual. But for the main show, we got three other lovely guests. First, Buc Brony. Welcome back, Buc.
Hello.
And also welcome back, DigiBrony. Haven't seen you on the show for quite a while.
Hey, everybody.
And for the very first time, IronColt, sadly with a little bit of camera issues, but nevertheless, welcome IronColt.
Yeah, what's up, everybody?
Okay, and yes, today we are going to talk a little bit about the, as I already mentioned, the uniqueness. And who wants to share their experience with other fandoms or other areas in life you could compare to Bronies and see if Bronies are really this unique or not? Who wants to start?
I should probably start off since I introduced this topic, so I should probably explain exactly what kind of discussion I'm hoping to get out of it. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately, how there are a lot of people who make statements that Bronies are unique. They'll point out all the things about this fandom that they seem to think don't come out of other fandoms, like how the way that we produce so much content, so much music, so much animation, stuff like that. The fact that it's a tight-knit community where everyone seems to be friendly with one another, at least to some extent. Some people see the dark side of our community as being unique. Like, people say, why are Bronies so pushy about what they're into? Why are there so many people who are into weird, like, furry stuff and porn and all that? Why are all these things here, and are these things unique to Bronies is basically what I'm asking. So the question is really, are Bronies different from other people, or is all this stuff just natural in nature? And that's the kind of question that I'm hoping to ask you guys. Hopefully it won't just be me talking, because I have already thought about this, but I'd like to hear I'm more interested in your angles than I am in my own, actually.
I actually also spend a little bit of time, but I want to let the guests go first, so, Buc?
I definitely think there's a lot of music and a lot of animation that I think there is a lot more out there than is with other fandoms, but I think, I don't know, maybe the fact that it's on the internet may have something to do with that, and YouTube is such a big thing with it. People find the show on YouTube, so they post stuff on YouTube about it.
Yeah, that is a great point.
Yeah, but there's definitely... I am quite a big Zelda fan. There's quite a lot of original Zelda music out there, for example. I don't think there's much Zelda animation like there is with Brony animation. I can't think of another fandom that is constantly producing these animations on YouTube, like the Brony fandom.
I believe the reason for
the other thing, the dark stuff... Zelda again has this thing called Ben Drowned. I don't know if...
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Great story.
I've never looked into that really because I find it kind of disturbing. That's a sort of similar thing
to read it. It's
like
it's
cupcakes and dot mauve kind of things.
As somebody already in the chat pointed out, rules 34. The content the actual text of Rule 34 is that there is Rule 34 for everything. So it is everywhere in each fandom. So
yeah, no matter what fandom you're in, there is porn.
Weird stuff with everything.
That is Rule 34 indeed.
Yeah.
And if
but yeah, I can't think that another fandom that has quite this much music and animation and fan art and fan art maybe actually, yeah.
That would be a good time for me to bring up the fandom that does have more, and that's I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of the Touhou series, but Touhou, which is Touhou, is a series of games that was it started in like '98 or so, and it's been coming out like basically there's like one game every year or two, And it's a series of curtain bullet hell shooters. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. Think of like Galaga, but if there was 1,000,000 bullets on screen at all times. And it's a series of games where basically you just fly. You play a little avatar girl, and you fly back and forth and shoot your bullets at the enemies. But what the game was known for is that it's extremely difficult and that the bullet patterns are extremely complex. But what it's really known for is that at the end of each stage you fight a boss. And the boss will be another character. And basically your character will have a conversation before the boss fight. And it'll show each of your characters, like, it'll show your character talking to that character. And the character will have this unique, interesting design, because the design work for the series is pretty much what it's known for. And you'll share, like, a couple of lines of dialogue that are just total non sequiturs. None of the dialogue makes any sense in this series. And then you'll fight the boss. Well, these characters don't exist beyond that in the game series. That's all they are. It's just a picture of them, the way they fight, and the couple of non sequitur dialogue lines that they say that reveal something about their personality. But these characters, each of them has one character of Toho has a fandom the size of the MLP fandom, at least in terms of content creation. Like, maybe not the sheer number of people, but there is as much content for, like, any one of the major Toho characters as there is for, like, the whole of MLP fandom. Just, I would go so far as to say millions of images, tens of thousands of comics and stuff that are made for them, lots of animations. They have lots of fan-made games. Because it's from a game series, people actually make other games with these characters just as fans. There was like a 15-minute fan animation for Toho that had professional voice acting. Like, the people who made this fan animation paid professional voice actors to be in it. There's been games with professional voice acting and stuff, and, like, just amazing, unbelievable artwork and full playable games that are, like, you know, like the MLP games that usually come out, they tend to be based on existing games, but they are, you know, Byters pointing out, Toho has been around for a lot longer. It's been around since 2004, and so Bronydom could potentially reach that same level of having that much shit come out for it. Because at this point, Toho is so ubiquitous in, like, Japanese anime culture that there's just constantly shit coming out for it, just like there is with Brony stuff now, but even, like, on an even bigger scale. It's funny because it's a smaller number of people in the fandom because it hasn't really reached outside Japan in a big way. Like, lots of people around the world play Toho and know about Toho, but there's not much, like, Western content. Like, not a lot of American fans or, European fans make stuff for Toho. Which is kind of the same with MLP. Like, it does have a following in Japan, but there's not nearly as much Japanese fan-made content as there is from here, obviously. So I'd say it's about that same kind of trade-off of how many people are interested in each country, but it definitely shows that there are other fandoms other than MLP that inspire that kind of work. So, yeah, that's one way that MLP fandom would not be unique. But,
yeah, well, that MLP, as you say, has not been around for as long. Yet the fandom has exploded quite sort of quickly, so I don't know, given more time, maybe it will be even bigger.
Yeah. I think the reason why, because of that, is it's because there's not really a fandom that was based on, like, a little girl's children's show. And so that's just a phenomenon for people. And so, like, we got all this recognition because there's probably nothing like that I haven't known of.
Well, and that's the next thing that people consider unique, is that it is based on a girls' show for kids. And there is none else that is this size, but there are adult fandoms for girls' shows for kids, especially, again, going to Japan, because this is where most of my experience comes from.
Anime is quite big, I think, for adults, isn't it?
Because anime, you know, there's lots of anime that's made for adults, you know. So anime is really made for all demographics. In fact, there is as much anime made for adults as there is for kids, but there is fandoms of kids anime in adult fandoms for kids anime. So, like, there's a big genre in children's cartoons called magical girl shows, and they're usually these, like, ultra cutesy shows about it's MLP feels like a magical girl show. That's part of how I got into it, because I was into those shows.
I guess for those
and they usually have.
If
you've ever seen Sailor Moon, you know what I'm talking about. A&Y Pony used to watch Sailor Moon.
Yeah, I did.
Your sound
was
kind of
actually the one where I wanted to go. For those people who don't know what the term magical girl show means, really big known classic one would be Sailor Moon. Nowadays there are, I don't know, thousands, millions, whatever, quite a lot of those. I believe something that works in favor of those particular, especially animes, is probably the fact that they come from Japan in the first place, because I could be totally wrong. I'm talking out of my ass right now, but I think that in Japan, that in Japan the people are not, they have their own stigmas, no question about this, but I believe they don't have this stigmatization of liking such a show, like it is with the Western world.
They really do. It's just that because there was that stigma in Japan, it just has been around for longer. Like, because I'm sure that when Sailor Moon came out back in the 90s, probably fans of Sailor Moon in Japan probably were heavily stigmatized, but that was 20 years ago, so there's been time for them to acclimatize to it, you know? We're just now having this phenomenon with MLP, so maybe 20 years from now, it will be a lot more somewhat normal, because even in Japan, it's still not really seen as normal. Liking anime is still seen as being kind of a creeper in Japan, you know? Despite what people will tell you where they say, oh, in Japan, it's like open to like anime, everyone likes anime. It's not true. There's anime made for adults, but it's seen as the adults who watch anime are, you know, failures of society. It's really not that different from people who like cartoons in the West, where they would think, what the hell, why are you watching cartoons? There's still that sort of social pressure in Japan, even though a lot of those cartoons are made for adults. It's seen as sort of perverted, because a lot of the shows are perverted. You know, there are some shows, some anime shows that are made for, like, older women in Japan, but they just aren't associated with being anime the same way as other shows are. You know, it's just seen as a different thing that's kind of separate from the rest of the medium. So the medium's really got the same kind of divisions as regular TV shows. Something like Sailor Moon, if you were a grown man in Japan and you said you like Sailor Moon, you're still going to get weird looks, and probably even so today, but not nearly as much as you probably would have in the 90s, because there's been 20 years of adult fans doing this, you know, because Sailor Moon was the first time when there were a lot of cosplayers where it was like men cosplaying as women and stuff, and that's where like the cross-dressing cosplay became a thing with Sailor Moon, but you know, it's been 20 years now. We're used to seeing it a little bit more, you know. But with ponies, it's like it's so public right now, and it's a lot newer in the U.S. for this to be happening. You know, anime was always pretty underground, so MLP is starting to get a little bit more overground, a little bit more visible, and it's not just for little girls; it's also ponies, you know. So yeah, so it's sort of like a next step.
And I believe also an
so
aspect
possibly,
or Buc, go first. Guess always first.
so possibly My Little Pony is going to go the same way as anime. It's just sort of in the earlier stages. Perhaps
that would be
it's eventually going to have adult My Little Pony on TV and things like that.
I mean, I don't know if it'll be quite like that, but I do think it would be really cool. You know, thinking about it right now, it's like the possibilities that I'm imagining are great. That, like, what if this happened where MLP started, like, because so many people are into it, you know, obviously it's still going to be stigmatized, but what if it becomes less so, and they start being, like, what if shows made for adults start to embrace this kind of childishness and girliness and wonder and stuff like that MLP has embraced? That would be nice. Yeah, I'd love to see that, because I'm a big fan of this kind of show, clearly.
Yeah, this would actually be nice, because earlier when you guys started, I was like, you are comparing a whole genre versus one show. And imagining that MLP on its own will reach what the genre of Magical Girl or all the other stuff in Japan.
Anime is not a genre. Right. I don't think.
I was talking about Magical Girl.
Magical Girl genre.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Magical Girl. Anime is, just all cartoons coming out of...
anime is just animation in Japan.
Excellent. Anime actually...
I'm not a huge anime fan, though, so I can't be completely confident about my anime knowledge.
No, that's fine. No, anime is actually just the Japanese word for animation. So when we say anime, we just say animation in Japan, and we associate with it animation from Japan. So we are crazy people in the Western world. No surprise there.
It's just a transmutation. It's funny too, because it is literally just the word animation. The way they pronounce it in Japanese is animation, and they shorten everything in Japan, so they just say anime. So it's just. Japanese culture, they shorten everything. All their words that are too long, they're just like, fuck
So
that.
does anime have like an equivalent of anti-bronies, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. Anime it's always been, there's always been a huge social crackdown on it. Like, the media represents anime in Japan the same way that the media represents bronies here, where they mostly have a sort of negative cutting edge on it, where they're like, they present it as something kind of dark or abnormal or strange, especially because the thing about anime is that there was a huge stigma for a very long time that's only just starting to recede in the past, like, half decade, where, because in the, like, I think it was the late 80s or early 90s, there was a guy who was like a serial killer who was a big anime fan, and so in Japan he was made out to be like the otaku killer, and so it was seen as this big stigma from then on, you know, just like how people who played video games get stigmatized with being violent because of like the Columbine incident. It's exactly that.
I'm not familiar with that
kind of stigma was what happened.
Um,
The Columbine incident? You don't know
No,
about
I don't know that.
the shootings?
No, I don't know that either.
One
Man,
big
cultural
shooting.
divide there. If you were in the U.S., you definitely would know about Columbine.
I'm in the US and I don't know.
Even if you do not
You
live
don't know
in
Columbine?
the US,
No.
the Columbine shooting, the really first really big school
It's
shooting in the
the
US.
school shooting that everyone remembers.
I always hear about shootings in America, but I've not heard about that one.
What state was it in?
Alright, well, I'll explain it then. So the Columbine shooting in the 90s was when these two guys shot up their school, and it was like the first school shooting to get like huge media attention. And this was also, because the 90s was also when stuff like the media
Matrix.
really became this sort of like circus about stuff. And this was like one of those big media circus events where these kids shot up their school. And the thing is that they one of the kids who did it, he had made like a Doom, he was like a Doom modder, and he had made a modded map of his school in Doom, and he had talked about like video games and stuff. So this was where the video games promote violence stigma really came from. That's why it's still a thing today, is because of this shooting. That's really where it like exploded, that video games would make kids violent or something like that. Which of course is not true. It was just sort of
In this
a
regard,
connection that it's a,
Think like that.
Yeah.
Just
do you
There's
gotta
that
guys
sort
think
of
that-
logic, but
like that
that's where
regardless.
that came from. And there was a very similar thing in Japan with this guy who killed these people and was an otaku, so it became associated with that. So there was that kind of stigma where it was always seen as sort of this weird thing. And then only in like the mid-2000s did that stigma really start to alleviate, where otaku-ness became more and more mainstream, and it sort of reached a point where Japan just kind of accepts them. Like, not, you know, wholeheartedly or anything, but it was like they don't have to hide as much anymore. Sort of like, because, you know, anime fans, definitely being in the closet as an otaku is very much a thing in Japan, but it's only recently starting to recede, where anime is becoming more acceptable. The kind of shows that otaku watch are starting to be more and more like the same stuff that the rest of society watches, you know, but there is still stigma against it. And bronies are sort of, they're not, obviously we don't have any kind of violent stigma against us, but we are in a stage, we're probably around where anime was in 2003, where people still don't really want to accept it, but they're kind of starting to a little bit, you know?
I think at that stage I just thought it looked kind of weird.
Yeah, even so, you can't even say this because there are so many different kinds of anime in Japan. We have the very primitive drawn one, we have the one with the very big googly eyes, and you have the very realistic one, so there are a lot of animes out there.
I mean, there's as many art styles in anime as there are artists doing designs in anime. You know, it's just that the only reason that they seem consistent is because they're informed by, you know, like because there was a father of manga, like Osamu Tezuka was the original manga artist. So everyone's design has kind of evolved from his, with all these branching
Yeah, there is definitely
paths.
a distinct style to anime.
Right.
You see anime animation, you know it's anime.
Yeah. And that's because of it's the same as how, you know, when you see Western comics, they all sort of look like, you know, the classic Western comics. There's always been that evolution from that old style, you know. So yeah, there's definitely a divide between. I mean, I've seen anime that, you know, that people say it's like not anime because it doesn't really look like it, but it's pretty easy for me to tell the difference. Even when a Western comic is trying to look anime, I can usually immediately out it as not being so because I'm experienced in the field. So we're totally off topic now.
Just talk about anime now.
I'm interested in knowing about what do you guys think of Brony's as being so kind and giving. Like, is that unique to Bronydom? Is that something that, like, does our fandom bring that out in people?
Well,
or is that just a, you know...
Actually, I don't think so, because, like, I've been very active in the Google Plus community, and, like, I've been getting tons of people that are having tons of problems with each other, where whenever you get into, like, relationships, as in, like, dating and all that, then the entire thing doesn't matter, because, like, there's going to be conflicts and all that. And then I even talked to a person that was on there, and she said, what happened to friendship is magic? And that's when I said, friendship is magic, but relationships aren't. So it's, to me, the social relationship, it's all just it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, if you are a brony, I bet, like, if you met, like, a stranger that found out that you're a brony too, then you would be, like, become automatic friends or something.
Yeah, well, I've never met a brony in real life, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess
I don't know.
it is not that the brony fandom really creates this kind of being nice to each other. I guess it's more the other way around, that because this kind of messages are... You have to have a certain interest in this kind of message, otherwise you couldn't enjoy the show. So it is more like the brony fandom is drawing people who are open for this kind of thoughts in, and that's pretty much more that the brony fandom unites or draws in those people, and that's why the fandom itself has let's at least say a larger number of people with this kind of mindset, because there are not only people like this.
Like, because the thing that's interesting about the brony fandom for me is the way that we are, like, that we do our donations and our kindness and stuff, is that you know, obviously there's lots of people giving to charities out there, right? These charities have always existed, and I'm wondering if people become more predisposed to giving because of brony fandom, or if these people would have given regardless, but they've associated their giving it with the brony fandom. Like, that was a complex sentence, and now I have to try to think about exactly what I just said. Basically, you know, how much of it is that brony, that there are more, like, a higher density of kind people in the brony fandom, or is it just that the brony fandom is more attaching it? Like, okay, let's say we had 100 music fans, and all of them, or like, let's say 50 of these music fans gave to charity, right? And then let's say we had a room full of bronies, and 50 of those bronies gave to charity. If you looked at the group of music fans, they probably don't give in a unified effort. There are just as many music fans who have given to charity, but they don't associate it with being a music fan, whereas the bronies who have given to charity are associating it with being a brony. So even though another fandom might have just as many people giving money, they aren't associating that with their fandom. The bronies are associating that with their fandom. That's what gets me. It's like, I'm not sure, though. I don't know if a lot of these bronies wouldn't have given to charity unless they found the brony fandom, because they see so many charitable acts. But I guess it's like a self-propelling thing. Like, because the brony fandom did associate it with being brony, like their charitability, they associate it with being a brony in the first place, then the more people see that, the more it stacks on that bronies are charitable, and then they feel more and more charitable themselves as part of the fandom. So in the end, it does end up being that brony fandom makes people charitable, but it, like, wasn't that way from the start. Like, it wasn't something natural in the show or the fandom. It was just the fact that they associated it with being a brony. Possibly they just associated their own kindness with the fact that they also watched a show about kindness or something, and then it spawned then people who are giving because they're in the brony fandom. It's an interesting train of thought to think about, and obviously there's no way to, like, prove anything in any direction, but
yeah, I have no clue about giving money to charity because you're a brony. I've never given to any sort of brony thing. I've actually given money as a Zelda fan a couple of times. A couple of websites doing Zelda marathons. I've given money to them. But no, I don't think I've ever given money because I'm a brony.
Right.
So I can't really sort of relate to what you're saying.
But would you associate the fact that you gave money to being a Zelda fan?
Well, they were playing Zelda games, and I was
Right.
watching it and giving money to charity because they were playing Zelda, so...
Right.
Yeah, probably. I would not have given money to them if it wasn't a Zelda marathon, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
My being a
So-
Zelda fan
Like
inspired me
if your Zelda fandom, if your like Zelda fandom was going to do like a charity for like Uganda, like the Bronies for Good did, would you donate to them?
Yeah, I don't think it would matter to me what they were giving money to. Well,
It's really about the fact that
yeah, it was.
they were
It was
doing
just that it was
something
like
that
they were playing
made-
Zelda, and I was enjoying watching it, and I thought, hey, this is kind of cool. I'll help them out.
Okay, what if like we're going to donate tons of Zelda games to them, huh?
Well, they had Zelda games already, so I don't know what they would stand to gain from that.
I don't know either.
No,
But for me, I think it does go back to the show. It has to, since that the show is based on friendship and kindness and all of that, then people start getting that inspiration, that motivation to actually go out into the real world and be charitable and be open and try to help others. I think
Right.
that's where it all goes.
Right. That's ultimately my question. It's just because like with what Buck was just saying, he was saying that he gave to the Zelda thing because of the fact that they were doing a Zelda stream. So
Yeah.
if it was an MLP stream and you were into MLP streams, let's say, you probably would have given it in that same context. If you were paying...
yeah, I haven't come across any streams that are
Right.
losing money. I don't think as of yet, but yeah, I probably would give it to it if I just sort of came
Right.
and they were
And
saying,
it would be that same kind of thing. So it's really not about the fact that you are a brony or about the message of the show. It was just that whatever they were doing was interesting to you and that inspired you to give.
Just
And
because
it
it-
wasn't associated with the fact that you were a Zelda fan. It was associated with the fact that it was something interesting to you, not so much that Zelda inspired you, you know. Whereas I think that bronies just associate a lot more with the show inspiring them. And that's ultimately like my question is,
yeah,
maybe it did really inspire them. I remember, because I haven't given any money to charity, mostly because I've never had money, and I've never, had the because to me it's like, there's so many charities and so many people that need help. It's like, where do you even begin, But for me, when I started watching MLP, it did inspire me to try and just be a bit nicer as a person, just because I had gotten really sort of, not really cynical, but my writing style had reached this sort of snideness to it. Like, I would write in a way that was like I didn't care what anyone thought, and like was kind of a little bit abrasive unnecessarily. So I thought, why am I acting like this? Why can't I just like be really legit and like calm and just like be cool about stuff? So I started to do that with the Brony fandom, and even for a while, I wasn't like when I first got into Brony stuff, I wasn't swearing in any of my writing. I just wanted it to come off as like really peaceful. Whew, God, I keep burping. I wanted it to be really peaceful and sort of zen-like. And now I swear in it again, but I still think I've kept that sort of... It did influence me in some way, but I don't really know if that was the message of the show or the message of the fandom or just me making some kind of weird association with my own desire to change that way and then associating that with the fact that it was a Bronydom. But it definitely sparked something, so it is interesting to think about.
There are certain factors coming together because I'm still starting out with the theory I had earlier that the fandom actually draws more generous people in. Then also there is the aspect Buc introduced us to, that when you are in some kind of fandom and there is a charity project within this fandom, you feel like usually people are most people have a certain giving nature. We are social beings after all, and I can imagine that people usually just don't give things because of cynical reasons, like, oh, I don't know if this association is really doing something good with the money, or just if they're just conning me. And then you have the problem of choice, because there are millions of good courses out there, and you just don't know where to give my money. And then you have this thing you are already involved in, and they are like, hey, we are doing something nice, and you just lead onto it like, hey, I'm here right now,
That's
why not do it?
Buck did with the Zelda.
Yeah.
that's just what fandom does. I think
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it inspires people to be.
But is it unique to MLP fandom, or could any fandom have
No,
inspired
I
all
think
these
any
people,
fandom
you know?
could do that.
Yes,
Right.
but MLP has a head start before other fandoms because it is about such a nice message. Let's take I don't know. Is there an active Dexter fandom? I don't know. But I just want to pick this series.
What, sorry?
Dexter.
An active Dexter.
I just want to pick this series because this series is about the life of a serial killer. And a life of a serial killer, as nice as the story might be, is not really inspiring for charity. And a show about friendship is. So MLP has a
But then
head
the
start.
question is, would those people are fans of the show super charitable, but they just don't associate it with being a Dexter fan? You know, do they just give to other charities that don't have to do with Dexter because Dexter's not the one that would grab them in that way? You know, maybe those people are like huge Dexter fans, but then they end up giving to something completely different just because, you know, it's not associated with Dexter. In which case, then it totally would be MLP, like, it totally would be the message of MLP that's inspiring people, because then they could have given it to something else that inspired them, but it was MLP.
Maybe they donate to serial
Dexter,
killer
you know?
victims? Okay, that's mean. And we lost Buc.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it's a mixture. It's hard to say.
Hold on. Someone in the chat says, Dexter inspires me to give to mental health charities.
That seems logical, yeah.
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 Yeah, so also I guess another question about the uniqueness of bronies is something I had actually quite recently been a little bit confronted with, was I guess the question itself had been around quite a while. Are bronies just a spin-off of furry fandom? And
I didn't know that. Because most bronies weren't in furry fandom.
Yeah, no, it's not just that the guy's argument was like the definition of furry, and furry is more or less defined as being interested in animals with human features, and actually by this definition we are talking about talking horses who use... Yeah, I mean,
you could say that we're a subgenre of furries, but yeah, it would be interesting to look at that in the context of something like musical genres, because I've seen where there's been genres where... hold on, let me try to think of it like a good example. Let's go with post-rock. There's a genre called post-rock, right? And the genre title would imply that it comes from a rock and roll background, and this is, I'm not actually being accurate with this, I'm just kind of using this as an example so because I can't think of a better one, but like let's say that post-rock is actually more influenced by atmospheric music, but because it is a kind of rock music, it is a subcategory of rock. It's not a subcategory of atmospheric, even though it's more informed by that. So My Little Pony would be a subgenre of furry, but it's not actually informed by furry. It's, you know, it's people who just happen to like this thing, but it happens to also be classifiable as a subgenre of furry without having an actual influence from that fandom. Whereas something like, if they made what is that? Isn't there an official Sonic porn being made? That would be that would be a direct subcategory of furry, something directly inspired by furry. Whereas MLP just happens to be furry, while not being informed.
Isn't furry to do with animals that are sort of human?
Yeah,
right.
This is
also
also
consists of just multiple foods of animals.
As long as it's an anthropomorphic animal, it's a furry.
Actually,
as long as it's not fully an animal, like it can speak, I believe it's still considered furry.
Yeah. This is the thing. So by the mere definition, more or less everything is furry. But the thing is, usually what people associate when they hear furry, they think more, and I was the same until I looked up the definition. They usually associate very anthropomorphic creatures like going on two legs and stuff like this, and only and having hands, but having fur at the same time. But yeah, it is actually, the definition is just any human, any anthropomorphic feature, and the moment animals start talk, it is actually a furry series. So there's
and whenever I just looked up the definition, and the first thing that I got on Google was, besides the definitions for the images, it's just immediately porn. So
I
believe this is also pretty big within the
That
furry fandom
definitely exists in the Brony fandom.
as well.
Right.
Yeah, but
Disturbing images of rarity.
as we already established earlier on, Rule 34 applies for everything.
Yeah,
So
like all of the stuff that's negative about the Brony fandom, and porn is not negative, mind you, but all of the stuff that is negative about the Brony fandom, I just happened to get onto this train of thought, is stuff that's in every fandom. You know, because people, I hear a lot of people who are like, why are bronies so pushy about like getting people into Bronydom? Why are they constantly telling people that they need to watch the show and being pushy about it? And I'm like, dude, that's every fandom. The amount of people who tell me that I need to watch Doctor Who, and the amount of people who tell me I need to watch this, that, and that anime, or when I was in anime fandom, everyone was always like, oh, everyone should watch anime. I can't believe I couldn't get my friend to watch anime. I was like, are we even friends? And I was just like, it's always like that. That's just every fandom.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much to ask to just ask someone to give it a chance, check it out.
Yeah, you have to watch it in order to understand it. So
Yeah.
Right, but people don't need to understand it. You know,
Just
you don't
watch
need to
a couple of episodes and see what you think. You don't like it, it's fine.
yeah.
That's why I consider it a negative because there are bronies who are super pushy about it. They're like they think that other people need to watch this show, and it's like no one needs to do anything. You know,
but-
like
Well,
I think
it's
the
an
reason for it-
exaggeration for the sake of emphasis. It's basically saying, oh, this show is so good you need to watch it. They don't
I
actually
believe-
mean that, they just mean
I believe
it's that
there
good.
is this idea going around that people are saying usually when they are confronted by a hater, they ask all people give like the blueprint way out of this is confronting the people with the question, have you seen anything? And this kind of mutated into from the question, have you seen it? How can you judge it? Kind of mutated into, you have to see it! Also,
Right.
I believe there are a lot of
Yeah.
very overexcited fans who actually believe that everybody should see it, but, well, they are probably
Right.
not the most reasonable ones.
right. And again, but this is on the topic of just is this unique to bronies? Not at all. It's in every fandom. You know, every fandom I've ever seen. You know, whether I'm a part of it and I see people in the fandom doing it, or whether it's just people from that fandom telling me I need to watch the shit. You know, there's always people like that in every fandom. So that's definitely not unique to bronies. And I think pretty much every negative aspect of bronydom is in every fandom. All of the haters, or like, you know, the in-fandom haters, like people who like the show but are haters to other people, and all the dickheads and stuff like that, it's in every fandom. There's no fandom that's all positive fucking rainbows and shit, you know? And I think every fandom has great people in it as well. Like, so a lot of people think that bronies are unique and that so many of us are good, but every fandom I've ever been in has awesome people, or else I wouldn't have been in it, you know? Like, I wasn't an anime fan for 6 years because they were a bunch of assholes. I was into it because I had friends and stuff, you know, and they were cool people who did stuff for
because
each
you like
other just like
anime as well.
bronies do, you know? It's just human nature to be cool people or to be a huge shithead, you know, but that has nothing to do with the show.
I don't know if there's any other fandom that has quite such an intense anti-fandom to it.
There is, though.
So
and
many anti-bronies out there.
like, because pretty much everything has an anti-fandom, but it depends on
Yeah.
how close that anti-fandom is to the fandom itself. Because, like, with the anti-bronies, they're kind of in bronies' faces about it. You know, like, they're constantly attacking us directly, like, on where they'll go to brony videos and criticize bronies there. But furries have an even bigger anti-fandom. You know, regardless of bronydom, furries have been hated for all time. There was never a time when furry was, like, acceptable. And it's still true. Furries still get driven out of everywhere, you know? There was a famous incident in 4chan history where people kept posting furry stuff on 4chan and they kept getting banned for it, right? And then 4chan one time opens up a furry board, and for 3 days, people were posting all this furry stuff on there, and then they closed the board and banned everyone who'd ever posted in it. So it was actually a trap.
Oh,
Just because
wow.
they hated
I don't know if
furry
that's
so
ever
much.
happened with MLP.
So,
Whoa!
when the MLP board
Unbelievable.
opened, because they opened an MLP board last year, and everyone was scared it was going to be another trap. It turned out it wasn't, but everyone thought it was going to be just like the furry trap, because they thought that MLP was hated in the same way, but it turns out they really were just acknowledging MLP's presence on 4chan. So even MLP got a board and furry didn't, you know, and furry still is not allowed on 4chan. So that fandom has been reviled for all time. So, there's definitely other fandoms out there that are as iron. Like, when I was in the anime fandom, with anime fandom, it's like split divisions inside the fandom. So, like, there's like all the lolly fans in anime fandom, and everyone hates them. I used to get a lot of shit because I like lolly shows and stuff, and people used to just constantly berate me
please
for that back when I was in anime
elaborate.
fandom.
Lolly fandom doesn't ring a bell here.
Lollies would refer to just like young girls in
Okay.
general.
Ooh.
So,
Haven't known
like,
that phrase yet.
people who are into magical girl shows are usually associated with being lolicon or pedophile, as they would say. So just even liking shows like that, you immediately get, just blasted for that shit. And yeah, so that's a big deal in the anime fandom. And people who are into those kind of shows completely hated by the rest of the community, So yeah, definitely other than Bronies, there are plenty of communities with a huge population of very vocal haters.
Yeah, like, every fandom has haters. I just wasn't sure it was quite as intense.
Right?
Yeah.
I think furry probably has the most intense hatedom.
But furry
Yeah,
maybe is the one exception.
Like,
Yeah.
furry is general, and the MLP fandom, it's like specific. It's just about horses. For furries, it's about dogs, foxes,
Well, how about-
wolves, crap.
How about the
like that.
Twilight fandom? Everyone openly gives
that's true.
Twilight fans
I
shit.
thought that. There are a ton of anti-Twilight fans.
Right. I mean, because
almost
and the
bigger
thing
than
about,
the actual
the thing
Twilight
about those
fan base.
fandoms is that, like, because we're in the MLP fandom, so to us, all the haters and stuff, it's like they're just a bunch of like assholes, right? But imagine if you were in the Twilight fandom. It would be the same feeling. You would feel that you liked the show and that everyone who hates it is just being a dick. But, like, it's so universally panned. People hate Twilight fans so much on the internet that, like, no one questions it. No one sticks up for Twilight fans, Everyone's just like, oh, they deserve it. They fucking like Twilight. Like, who cares about them, But think about the Twilight fans, like, how that feels for them. It's like, oh, great, no one has our back,
I hadn't thought of Twilight. Yeah, that is the one thing where the anti-fan base is almost bigger than the actual fan base.
Right. And someone's bringing up Believers as well. Justin Bieber fans. No one likes them, So, yeah.
Oh, well,
There's definitely
musicians are
other-
always going to get that kind of thing.
Oh my
I think.
god, I just
There's
realized I'm
definitely-
actually a hater because I am an anti-Twilight and I am an anti-Justin
Right.
Bieber.
I mean, it's one thing to not like Twilight and not like Justin Bieber, but those fans get just... You can't come out and say you're a Twilight fan in, like, a
No, you
YouTube
don't.
comment section and not, like, get slain, It's just gonna happen. So...
Still a
Yeah,
better
I mean-
romance than Twilight. That's a meme.
Yeah, it's like the big YouTube meme. It's just people post still a better romance than Twilight. So yeah, people love trolling Twilight fans. And
I don't-
people
I
love
don't
trolling
get it,
MLP
really. It's
fans.
not-
I mean, I would say MLPs hate them, like hate fandom, or yeah. I love using the phrase hate them. That's for people who love to hate something, like it, like what it,
Anti-fandom, hate
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think MLPs hate them is probably almost as big as Twilight's. But Twilight is comparable. It's on that level, So there are other fandoms that have that level of ire out there.
And even more. Yeah, I guess a point where you could argue about the uniqueness of Brony fandom is the particular combination of factors like the creativity within the fandom, and but I guess when you argue
way I
like
see it-
this, you can. When you argue about the uniqueness of combinations of certain aspects, you can say that every fandom is unique then, because I don't believe
Exactly.
that there are two fandoms that are absolutely identical
Exactly.
with all aspects.
And that's basically the point that I wanted to go into this with, is just simply that the MLP fandom is unique in the way that any fandom is unique, which is that, of course, it is the MLP. The main way that MLP fans are unique is that they are fans of MLP, not Sailor Moon, not Homestuck, not whatever. We just are the MLP fandom, and that is our uniqueness. Everything that makes MLP fans unique is inherent in that it's MLP, So the fact that it's a girls' show is not unique. The fact that any broad concept, anything like the fact that we have haters, the fact that it's this kind of show, the fact that we have this kind of art, that stuff is never going to be unique. It's only the specific way that it's combined that is unique. And that's not, that's special, but that's not that special in a grand sense. It doesn't mean that MLP has introduced anything new. It just means that it is its own permutation of existing ideas, So, yeah, MLP is interesting in that it is probably the first Western cartoon explicitly made for little girls about candy-colored horses that has an expansive adult fandom. And, you know, that is unique, but that's also behind like all these layers of things you had to clarify before it becomes unique. And there will be more after it, I think. I think we will get another show of this nature at some point in the future where it'll still be unique because it won't be My Little Pony.
I believe
but
it's
it will
called
be something
Equestria
else
Girls.
that will have this kind of fandom that will surprise people, you know?
Yeah, they have definitely sort of opened the door to more shows like this that they think now.
I believe the show is called Equestria Girls, Digi.
Equestria Girls. Equestria Girls are funny, fabulous. I hope it's going to be the opening theme.
Okay, since we kind
Yeah,
of...
it should be.
Okay, since
I mean, it was made by the Hub, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Since we kind of already reached the ultimate conclusion a little bit early, we have to kind of digress again. So even so we kind of talked about this on the Crepuscularity earlier, but I'm not sure if even Buc was there, Iron, you, and Digi weren't there for sure. So is it maybe the uniqueness, I mean, I know the answer, but nevertheless, is it maybe a certain uniqueness with MLP that it is challenging the social standards so much?
I think in a way every fandom challenges a social standard because of the fact that you are doing something that not everyone else is doing. I think every time that you do something that's not absolutely universal, you are challenging some kind of standard. Like even just the act of watching a cartoon, regardless of what cartoon it is still saying I'm different from people who don't watch cartoons, which is the majority of adults. So if you then go even further and say I'm watching a girls show, then you're watching something that the majority of adults aren't. So what's unique about MLP is mostly just how many layers of that there are where it is under cartoon girls show about horses, you know. So yeah, it's just like if you were pushing down through barriers, it's at the bottom of those barriers, you know, down there, and then you have to push past MLP, and if you can get, you know, down through MLP porn and furry porn, and now you're at the bottom where you are where the farthest away from what normal society is, and that's where you meet me. And I shake
Weird,
hands.
'cause adults can go to animated films, they can go and watch animated shows, they can go and watch shows meant for kids that are live action or anything, but for some reason MLP is just going too far or something. It's just something everybody seems to question.
But, you know, I think everything was going too far at some point, you know, and it's still, even today, even if you just talk about cartoons, although I think we're finally at the point where talking about cartoons is pretty normal among adults, because, like, I know that 10 years ago, talking about cartoons among adults was still something like, really? You watch that? But with my generation, where it's so everywhere because of Netflix and the internet, and we all have nostalgia constantly in our face because of the internet, we're finally at a stage where even, because when I was at work, I worked very briefly, but it was all people my age that I worked with, and most of them were completely normal sort of people. They weren't like super nerdy. I mean, a lot of them played video games, but it was just like Call of Duty, you know, whatever. They were just like normal bro dudes. And they did talk about cartoons because they had that nostalgia. Those cartoons show up on the internet. They go and watch them. They would have conversations about Avatar: The Last Airbender, and there'd always be that guy who's like, "You guys watch cartoons? Are you serious?" You know, and he'd be all like, "Ugh, blah blah blah." But then there'd be a majority of people who are kind of defending Avatar: The Last Airbender, even though it's a cartoon. Yeah. They are part of a generation that can appreciate that. 10 years ago, that would not have been the case, you know. And 10 years from now, maybe we'll have people who talk about MLP because it will have become nostalgic and it'll have become more cultural, and the culture will have evolved to have embraced shows like that, you know. So, like, I never talked about MLP to anyone at my work because I knew it was not going to be okay. I knew that they were not going to, I didn't want to have to get into a fucking argument about it, you know, because I knew that these guys were not that open-minded. Maybe 10 years from now, you'll be able to be openly gay in a workplace and not get slammed for it, you know. There's still a lot of these social stigmas that are slowly evolved. Well, not in my workplace, you could not have been openly gay and not been. I mean, they would have accepted it, but you would have been made fun of all the time. You know, there was at least one guy at my work who I'm pretty sure was gay, and he was not open about it. You know, so yeah, it was not that kind of environment where you could do that or be open about ponies. But maybe 10 years from now, we will be in that environment. I think, especially with the gay thing, I think we are reaching there. I think
I'm kind of annoyed that we're not there yet, really, because I think wasn't there an NBA play came out like this week, and I'm like, why is that even a headline? That should just be like the norm.
By the way, the chat is pretty much
I
pointing
really
out.
think, I think within a decade we will be there.
Right?
The chat is pretty much pointing out that the possibility of being open about homosexuality is a lot better in Europe. So, but yeah, we are still far away from being open about it. But we are still pretty close about being open about ponies. So.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, where I live in Virginia. Which, if you lived in the United States, you would probably see Virginia as southern. But if you lived where I live in Virginia, it's pretty liberal. I live in a city that's kind of like it's in the perfect nexus of like, God, we really represent like everything that is America is kind of in our city. Like all of the highs and lows, all of the different ideologies, all of that really is a melting pot in Virginia Beach. Because we are right where the South meets the North. We are on the coast. We are a kind of big, we're like the 31st biggest city in the U.S., so we're like far from being any kind of metropolis, but we have enough people that we're not really, complete suburb. So we're like a suburban city. We really have all the different aspects of that. So there are a lot of gay people here, but it's not open like San Francisco or something where, you can be gay openly and it's just normal because there's shitloads of gay people there. Here, we know that there's a lot of gay people, and we're not in their face about it, but it's still obviously stigmatized, and it's still not something that anyone's going to come out about, unless it's among peers. Like, when I was in college, there was plenty of people openly gay, but when I was at work, there was none. There was not going to be, because they weren't ready, Like, that's all it really was. None of them hated gay people. They just clearly weren't ready to accept it, But I felt like they were close, and that within the next decade, I feel like they're the kind of people who, even though they're not ready, would want their kids to be ready and would raise their kids to be ready. So by the next generation, I think we would be ready for that,
Yeah, I think like it's the United States, they're more uptight about who they are, what they do, and all that. But
Exactly.
like in Europe, like they're more open to like anything, because like I heard like in Europe they have a lot more like nude beaches, they don't care about what other people think. They'll just go wherever they want. They're open to themselves. They don't care what other people think about themselves because they're just accepted.
Well, I don't know. Where are you from, IronColt?
Yeah, I'm from Missouri.
Because I do feel like if we're going to talk about the UK, we should let probably Buc talk about it. He's actually from the UK.
Well, I've never known there to be any nude beaches in this country.
Yeah, but like what I mean is that
Europe in general.
Yeah, Europe in general is what I mean.
By in Europe, do you mean the UK or do you mean on the continent?
I mean like around the western coast of Europe. There's more. That's what basically what I've heard.
We are very sort of separated off from Europe because we're on an island, so we probably don't have as much European culture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm talking about.
We don't have no beaches.
Yeah, I'm talking about like in
Americans
France,
don't know that much
stuff like that.
Yeah, but in France there are some for sure, I know. Also in
Byters in the chat, your lib.
Yeah, Byters in the chat like nude beaches in the UK? Where?
No, sorry, Byter. We don't have nude beaches. Oh, I certainly don't know of any.
No, I'm not sure. Omicron Boney posted Germany, but probably somewhere because we Germans are pretty open for the whole naturalism thingy. I know in Spain there are a few beaches, but it's usually you really have to look for it because the Spanish people are kind of on a regular beat. The Spanish people are so nice anecdote from my last holiday. Spanish people are kind of hypocrites about it because my ex-girlfriend was topless and nobody complained. I was lying on the stomach and had pulled off my shorts so I don't get the white butt. And then some old dude who had no problem with my girlfriend by at the time being topless came over like, police, yeah, and I was like, seriously, dude, you're such a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there a lot of
women because you like to look at them?
Yeah,
Men
exactly.
can't do it. Yeah.
I must thank you for just all of the imagery that you've described in this story, from your white ass on the beach to your girlfriend's rack. Just everything.
Yes. No, you pointed it out.
You've done so much for us.
This is really strange. When I think about this holiday, I remember my girlfriend's ass. But okay, you remember my ass. Whatever.
Double-edged sword of nude beaches, you know.
But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like what I've heard in like what I've learned actually in geometry stuff like that. Like what I've heard on the U.S. media and all that. I've heard like that Europe, they are a lot more freaking open to themselves. Like they just do that. And unlike America, we're more uptight and we care about, like, I don't know, I'm stupid, I don't know.
Yeah, there definitely isn't much of a
Point out, I think
sort of,
geography.
what's the word I'm looking for? Prejudice against homosexuals as there is in America. There's definitely not that kind of thing in this country. I think people say they're gay, it's just sort of like saying I'm dyslexic or
I think what IronColt
I
is
have a
trying
broken
to get
leg
at is
sort of
that
thing. It's just kind of
America is
normal.
really obsessed with a strict self-identity.
Yeah.
We kind of, there's kind of this perception like everyone in America wants to be the American everyman, you know. And even though we parody that to death, and lots of people don't feel that way, even though those people don't feel that way, they still feel that that is a thing here. Like, it's so prominent in our culture that even when we're parodying it, we still feel like this is a thing. Everyone in America wants to be this sort of ideal form, you know. And so trying to reconcile the fact that we want everyone to be this sort of guy makes it so when we think of like, okay, well, how can we make someone who's so different from what our self-image is, and let that be part of our self-image, because we want to be so strictly one thing. And so much of us aren't that thing. Most of us just think we are that thing, but almost no one is that thing. That thing doesn't even exist.
Afraid
it's
of nudity?
No one is completely normal.
I don't get the connection. This is why you're afraid of nudity? Because you are afraid to see that somebody else looks different? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is. We're afraid of the idea that people won't look like our ideal.
Okay,
you know?
sorry guys, no offense to any American in the stream, but my European mind just can't wrap. This sounds so stupid. Sorry.
Yeah, see, that's the problem.
Exactly, it is a problem, and that's one of the biggest. That's just one of the biggest problems in America. It's just we have too much of a fucking image issue. We really need to get over it, you know, and realize that we're not, because, you know, in our culture it's so much about trying to be I hear this so often that it sounds cliche coming out of my own mouth, but it rings true that we all want to be the people on TV. We all want to be the same ideal standard, you know? And so anything that's not up to that ideal standard is weird to us. Even if we know this, even if we're smarter people, it's still weird, you know? Even to people who live their everyday lives, knowing that they're not going to be that thing, they still hold on to it in their mind. You know, that's the idea of the American dream, as they call it, is that even though you know you're not going to achieve this, it always is niggling back there. There's part of every American that still thinks they're going to be rich one day. There's part of every American that's still holding on to the idea that they're going to be a famous fucking rapper, you know? And that's always there. So these people, like the people I worked with, who even though they knew that was never going to be their life, it's so there that when something is different, when they have to accept their normalcy, it's so difficult for them.
But I still don't get the connection to the nudity issue, because when you have somebody, but because
you're really up on this nudity issue, aren't you?
He can't get off this nude.
Yeah, because
well, it's also a big moral thing.
I should...
Like in America, nudity is treated as like some kind of fucking ridiculous... Because you're in Germany. You guys have tits on TV. We don't even have tits in rated R movies anymore.
We have
barely.
Tits, we have kids. We have tits even in regular program on TV. Not even after 10 p.m. After 10 p.m. we see even more.
Exactly.
But no, not actually.
We don't even have it on after PM shows. You can only see tits on TV here if you have fucking cable and and you can get those channels.
Yeah, but this is exactly the thing, because when some dude has a really worked out body, or when a girl has really nice chest. Okay, boobs, whatever.
Oh, now he's being coy about it.
Screw it, boobs.
Gotta be careful.
You can still see it, even if those people wear just a bikini or a t-shirt, for Christ's sake. So what makes this little bit of fabric the difference? It doesn't. This is just prudence.
Yeah, I never understand the censorship of women's breasts, basically. You can't show the nipple. You can show every other part of it, but you can't show the nipple.
It's
just dumb. It's just dumb shit.
Originally, we all were naked.
You can show man's nipples.
The funny thing about it is that in the U.S., ultimately, I think most people are okay with it, but we're all scared of offending that vocal minority who's going to get pissed off, and we're so scared of offending them that we won't do anything about it. We can't just throw those people under the bus and say, you know what, fuck you, I don't care if you're offended. Like, that's what we should do, is eventually just say, the majority doesn't care, the vocal minority is the only thing holding it.
If you ever reach this point where you overcome your vocal minority, Derpy would still be on the show and the soccer moms would be thrown out the window.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
When people say they're offended, it's like suddenly everyone has to pay attention to them. Ooh, look, this person's offended. We better change things and fix it so that they're not offended.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
And that's definitely that permeates all of American television.
Yeah.
All of it. We always are very squeaky clean about stuff like that.
Yeah, we care about like the 1%.
I just realized something, guys.
By all means, be offended.
If we want to get Derpy back in a speaking role, we have to legalize public nudity in the US. There's the
The sincerity of your face was priceless.
Sorry.
You look so real, and I've totally bought it. I felt it in my heart. I really believed for a minute. If I can get tits on TV, I can have Derpy back. I really believe that now. I believe in A&Y Post.
There's going to be a picture about that somewhere.
Yeah, something like that.
I know someone's going to make a picture of that.
It has been an hour.
Probably.
It's interesting you mentioned that Americans hate anything that is different from them in any kind of different kind of way. Wasn't there an organisation of people in like the 1940s that were a bit like that? I think they began with a K. They dressed in white, didn't they?
No.
The KKK's been around since a lot longer than the 40s, by the way.
Yeah,
they're kind of in the Nazi direction. And the KKK is still around, too, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
They're still an active group.
The Krispy Kreme clan.
Yeah. Oh well.
Oh, we got really off topic there.
Yeah, we kind of...
I mean, it's been an hour, so we could easily close it here.
Yeah. Or does anybody has, or maybe it's a chat, has the chat any certain aspects that might be unique about Bronies we should talk about, or anything like this?
We can hammer those nails down. They're just talking about how you need to be president, but you can't because you're not native born.
Yeah.
Theory says he missed the whole thing, unfortunately.
Is he here again? Ah, he did it again.
Theory is here, but he's missed the whole thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh well. It's too bad Paleo wasn't able to make it today, because he's in the final stages of finishing off the documentary. So he actually pulled a few all-nighters, and yeah, because he was I'm not sure if active, but he was a member of the furry fandom and anime, I believe, as well, and he would have probably had some interesting insights. But yeah, more than me, of course, because MLP is actually my first fandom I'm active in. I am a fan of a lot of series, but I have never been this active. So, yeah.
Right.
I mean, we all know that Digi has pretty much of a background about anime. I'm not sure about you, Buc.
Mm-hmm.
Zelda is the only other one I sort of have been very intensely involved in. I mean, I'm a fan of quite a lot of other things like Doctor Who, Harry Potter, but I don't get involved in the fan base as much with them, so I'm not as familiar. I mean, I think
I love that it's Doctor Who and Harry Potter, you have like the two quintessentially like British big fandoms that you happen to be into.
There's a reason for it, I guess.
well, yeah, I am British after all. It's only fair. No, there's nothing else I'm a huge, like, massive fan of. So I have very sort of exclusive. Yeah, it's just those four for me, really, though. That I'm a sort of massive fan of, and I've never really been involved in the fan base of anything else, except for Zelda.
I believe there haven't been any new great questions about for us to discuss about or thoughts. At least if I not missed it once again, possible.
By the way, in response to Velvet Fog said, he's been a Brony since G1, furry anime fan, but there isn't anything special about the Brony fandom except for that the internet, thanks to the internet, it literally blew up. But the Homestuck fandom pretty much blew up overnight as well. Homestuck's only existed for 3 years, and it's already fucking, like, it was enormous by the end of year 1. So, yeah, I'd say Homestuck pretty much blew up in a way similar to Bronydom.
I have no idea what that is, unfortunately.
You can just go look that up, because I'm not even going to get started. That can take all day.
Just Google
It'll be
Homestuck.
here for a while and start talking about something else.
Yes, but Homestuck is because it's, I believe, a written novel, correct? It
is a webcomic.
Or a web comic. It is limited, or not limited to, but it is focused on images and stuff like this and fan fictions. Because MLP is originally television series with flash animation, there is a lot more animation and stuff like this. Because from a web comic, it's harder to.
I mean, there is plenty of Homestuck fan animations.
Yeah, I know.
Out there.
Yeah, I guess so. But because Homestuck originally started out as a web comic, they had to go a longer way to reach this point, while MLP pretty much started there, and I guess that's why there is more from MLP, but I know that the Homestuck fandom is also pretty big and epic and stuff like this, even though I don't know anything more about it, that the little yellow horns are part of it. So...
okay.
Well, should we guys sing happy birthday for BucBrony?
23:42.
What?
What?
Your connection is a little bit breaky.
Yeah.
Me?
Yes.
Oh god, we lost him. You still there, did she?
I'm still here.
Oh god, we've lost him.
Okay, let's just try. Come back!
Oh jeez.
Okay, let's just try it with happy birthday in 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday to you. Okay, we are not singing. Happy birthday. Oh, this is horrible.
Birthday.
Okay, sorry, Brony. There's no way we can sing happy birthday because we are not in sync.
We lack the ability.
Yeah,
we lack the ability.
Yeah.
Can you hear me again yet?
Yeah,
Am I back
yes.
Alright, you can't sing the happy birthday song, it's copyrighted, you'll get sued.
Oh right, I heard
Well, screw it.
Idea Channel talked about it. We can't sing happy birthday, god damn it. No. So yeah,
Well, who's it copyrighted by? Who owns it?
Let's make our own.
I'm not
happy
sure, but it's
birthday
like
song.
it's a massive copyright. You'll notice, watch movies, you'll never hear that song sung in any movie, like the way that,
I've definitely
that
heard
you
it.
know the song. Huh?
I have definitely heard it in movies.
Has it been sung the exact same way, though, with the same lyrics?
Yeah, he actually has a point. Every time I
They
heard a
often
happy birthday
change the
song,
lyrics. Right. When you watch it in TV and movies and stuff, it very often they'll change the words or the tune slightly so that it obviously is calling back to that song, but you'll realize it's not exactly the same because the original song that you know is copyrighted, and Yeah, so it doesn't appear anything. I guess it's like a massive copyright or something.
Mm.
I'll have to check out every movie that sings Happy Birthday.
Yeah.
Now we
That's
have
gonna
a
be a project of mine, I think.
Okay.
Because I did always wonder in movies why they would sing so many different permutations when the original everyone knows. It's like, why would they change it all the time? And then I found out that, and I was like, oh, that makes sense.
If anybody is interested, there had been a movie by the Idea channel about this certain issue. But I guess we can't really drag this whole topicness on any longer, since,
Right.
yeah, we are pretty much not talking about the whole uniqueness thing anymore. So I guess we will move over to the aftermath, and yeah, I guess the official part ends now, and Byter will be there for the aftermath in a few minutes. And I think
I'll be taking off because I have to go help my brother make a movie.
sure thing. Then I say thanks, Digi, for rejoining. Maybe again next week, can think about it. And IronColt, Buc, you too as well. Thanks for joining the show. And
Been a
thanks
pleasure.
to the chat for sticking with us. Bye-bye.